Ugh. All right. When was the moment that you thought you were too cool for the stuff that you liked when you were younger? Thing is that a big part about growing up is finding out that you have new hobbies and interests that kind of take the place of the things that you liked when you were younger. Eventually, you kind of get to that point where you look back on the things that you liked when you were younger, and you just say to yourself, "What am I? A baby?" While you, not me, never done this, you might still be pooping in your pants and sitting in it. In fact, you are no longer a baby. Dude, for me, I vividly remember the moment where I stopped thinking that Pokemon was cool. Dude, if you didn't know this about me, or literally any of the other videos that I made, well, I was a huge Pokemon fan when I was a kid. Because the thing was that when I was growing up, I had played Gen 1 through Gen 3 throughout the majority of my childhood. But there was something shifting in me in this age that was kind of shifting my priorities a little bit. The thing was I vividly remember seeing Cole and Dylan Sprouse on the commercial for Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the one where they completely emphasize the part of Pokemon, so it sounds like Pokemon. All right, you know what? Whatever. Just roll the footage.
I play Pokemon Heart Gold version. I play Pokemon SoulSilver version. I collect Pokemon, trade them, and engage in heated battle.
The thing was, at the time, was I had a Crimson DS Lite. I had loved Pokemon games for years, up until this point. I was exactly who Nintendo was trying to advertise to at the time. But the thing is, when you're a 9-year-old boy, there's a psychological feeling of hostility and even a little bit of intimidation towards things that girls are obsessed with, particularly male figures. Probably had something to do with the fact that all of these girls were paying attention to these guys instead of me. You know, Mr. Perfectly Cool and Normal. Here are some prime examples from my childhood. Justin Bieber, the Twilight book series when they were having that Team Edward versus Team Jacob like turf gang war. And to tie all of it all together in a pretty little bow, Zach and Cody. So when I watched that commercial with Cole and Dylan and they were promoting the new Pokemon game, I only had one thought. Oh, great. Pokemon is gay now. First off, cut me some slack on my adjective choice. I was 10 and I lived in Modern Warfare 2 lobbies. I wasn't exactly a social justice warrior at 10 years old, okay? And speaking of Modern Warfare 2 lobbies, this was the time where kids were absolutely captivated by online multiplayer shooters. So you're telling me that I have the option between that game that Zach and Cody play or blowing the skulls off of resurrected Nazi soldiers? That would be like asking a stoner if they would rather have a job application or a beanbag chair that's littered with Dorito crumbs. And so from that moment on, I put Pokemon up in the closet. I let it collect dust as I felt like I was growing up and I needed to move more on to some sort of adult content. No. But the thing is, now I am an adult. I groan when I stand up and I hear my knees click into place. It's the little things like that about being an adult that make you want to go back to the things that you enjoyed that 10-year-old self would call gay. And that's exactly how I landed back with Pokemon and this channel. I've been collecting Pokemon cards again. Shout out Destin Rivals for literally never being in stock in stores ever. And I felt that ticking time bomb in the back of my head that was telling me that it was time for me to revisit a region. And with all that work, after some time, eventually, I crowned myself as the champion, the emperor of Johto. And let me tell you what, SoulSilver is absolutely emitting a dopeness and swag that could not even be measured on any sort of scientific device that is made to pick up energy or raise or any. You know what? I think it's time that we take a deep look into Pokemon SoulSilver is a role-playing game that was developed by Game Freak and published by Nintendo in 2009. Being a remake of the original Generation 2 games, Nintendo created Heart Gold and SoulSilver to commemorate the 10-year anniversary of the original launch of these Generation 2 games. Game Freak, they'd already climbed that mountain before of putting out a game that was a remaster of one of their original games and fighting the battle of not trying to have it come out like a giant stinking stepped on pile of horse dew with the releases of Leaf Green and Fire Red, taking the essence of what made these original games so fun and exciting to play, importing it to a newer console to help reimagine this massive landscape that could only be truly represented on some newer hardware. So now that it was time to bring back a fan favorite in the series, Game Freak, they got together and they started standing over a cauldron, cooking up the dopest gaming remake that has ever hit the market. The reason why Game Freak and Nintendo, they do this kind of thing is because in the process of creating a new game for a new system, developers, they have to build an engine that is specific to that device. Then they have to wrap a bunch of code around that engine to make that specific game in mind. Generation 4 was that engine for the original Nintendo DS. And they didn't really want this engine to just go to waste. Game Freak, they took the engine of Generation 4. They realized that they probably already had like 80% of the work done. They figured that they could pump out a remake of one of the original games that got a lot of the original players hooked to begin with. And they gave these players a chance to explore a reimagined version of a world that initially got them hooked on Pokemon, selling over 12.7 million copies combined. SoulSilver, let's just face it, I feel like I've done this in the videos before. Fire Red, I was also talking about Leaf Green. Emerald, I was also talking about Gen 3. In this video, I'm also talking about Heart Gold. Okay, I just played SoulSilver. Combination of those two games became the 8th best-selling DS game of all time. Pokemon SoulSilver, it starts you off like any other Pokemon game. Your goopy eyes, they start to open like a freshly hatched baby bird. A man, he stands in the room with you. He starts laying down the law of this Pokemon universe that you had just entered into. They don't really give you any context of where these conversations normally happen. So I just like to imagine that the main character is just laying in their bed and Oak, he just pops out of a dark corner and he says, "My name's Oak, but everybody calls me the Pokemon Professor." Hey there, did that joke make you laugh? I hope so. We got plenty more over at the Cornborn channel. I don't sell merch, I don't have a Patreon, but you know I'm gonna run those ads though, you know what I'm saying? Just a like, subscribe, comment, all those kinds of things help me out, help my channel grow. I refuse to only do Pokemon games. I refuse it. So we got a lot more of other games that I really enjoy from my childhood. So if you want to support me, support the channel, just do those things. I hate being the guy to do this, but and I'm also not gonna be one of those guys that's like, look how many people watch my video but don't subscribe. If you don't want to be here, don't be here. But if you do, I'd appreciate the support. Thank you. Now back to the video. And you know Oak's look, but this time around, he's got some absolute swag to him. He's got that Happy Gilmore golf tournament jacket on, a crisp polo tucked into some slacks being held up by a Gucci belt, and some freshly polished loafers. Absolutely busting out his Sunday best like he's about to take Mrs. Oak out on a fresh date to Applebee's. He's got that look to him like he bought a house back in 1973, primarily off of a part-time paperboy's income. And Professor Oak, he asked you that question. That question that vets normally ask when they lift a dog's tail up and place it on his back. Are you a boy or are you a girl? And as that question is asked to you, we are introduced to the two main characters throughout this entire game, Ethan and Lyra. All right, so since I'm a dude, I always go with Ethan, so per usual, let's break down this man's fit. First off, obvious point of contention here. Ethan's aura is just absolutely dope. Biggest difference between him and Red? The hat is turned backwards. Being a dude and wearing your hat backwards, it is a universal sign that screams, I'm gonna take your aunt to a nice dinner out at Olive Garden and make her pay the bill on one of those stupid table iPads. And due to her experienced age, she is not gonna understand that the card reader is on the side. No, it's on the side. Yes, no, put your card in the side. No, it's upside down. Flip it, put it over in the side. Okay, that's not gonna, just tap the front. Tap the front with your card. It'll pay it. Is it? Whatever. I'm just going to pay for this. He's got that vintage store windbreaker. He's got the Omnitrix from Ben 10 and some joggers that I guess just right up to his knees. Capri joggers. Joggers. Joggeries. This dude, he is beasted up. He has like more of like a skater energy to him.
And I rock with it.
Ooh. After picking your gender, you will have to give Professor Oak your name to tie yourself down to this completely expansive, immersive Pokemon journey that you're about to find yourself on. You are shrunk down into a 32-bit version of you, and you wake up inside of your room. In true Pokemon fashion, the most relevant Nintendo console is the center point of your entertainment console. During this game's release, it was the Nintendo Wii. You start working your way downstairs. Mom tells you that there's this guy, he's named Professor Elm, he's next door. He just gave your mama a ring, and she told you that you need to run your little cheeks over there. You pop in, he lets you know that he's been doing this study to find out what happens when Pokemon are allowed outside of their balls and they're allowed to kind of just follow you around as you work your way through this magical world. In the middle of this conversation, though, he gets an email from one of the most creatively named people in the entire intellectual property of Pokemon, Mr. Pokemon. The concept of this guy just being named Mr. Pokemon is one of the funniest things to me. He really just woke up one day and started demanding to other people that he be referred to as Mr. Something that he just loves. That'd be like if I just started demanding that people refer to me as Mr. Come home from work and lay face down in my bed to escape the inevitability of endless labor. This is the moment of truth. This is the moment that we've all been waiting for. Picking your starter Pokemon. This generation, it offers you 3 different starter Pokemon for you to choose from. We got Chikorita. She's like a turd-filled spinach wrap burrito. We got Totodile, or as a Florida man would call him, a projectile to throw at a minimum wage Wendy's employee through their drive-through window. Or we got Cyndaquil, an anteater who's blowing out the back of his shorts because he ate some 3-day-old leftover Taco Bell that was sitting out on the counter. So you gotta know, who's the starter that I go with? Gotta give it to my goat, Cyndaquil. You might ask yourself, what? Corn? Why do you go with Cyndaquil? Because that's the one that I liked when I was 4. That's why. There's no further explanation than that. After you grab your starter, you start working your way through the wild grass to go link up with Mr. Pokemon. Yeah. He gives you this present. It's an egg. He gives you an egg. And then you start working your way back to the Pokemon lab. But the moment that you step out of Mr. Pokemon's house, you get a phone call. It starts ringing. It's from Professor Elm. He is in a cold sweat. He's absolutely tweaking off the meth molly. He tells you that you gotta come back. You gotta return. On your way home, you bump into this absolute dickhead who just goes by the name of Passerby Boy. But the thing is that something's a little off here, because he throws out one of the starters that you just got from Professor Elm. Yeah, this ain't nothing but a thing. You spank his cheeks crazy style, and you just keep working back to the lab. Professor Elm, he lets you know that the reason why he called you is because some redheaded dickhead just came into the lab and stole one of his Pokemon. Using your 11-year-old detective logic and reasoning skills, you piece together that Passerby Boy was that thief in question. Cops are there, they're doing a report, and they ask you, what was the name of that kid? Oh, buddy. It's one of my favorite times of the game. Tell me you get to name your rival? Oh, Nintendo.
Yeah, you're gonna regret this one.
You find out that redheaded boy's name was Poop Hat. I really struggled with this one because I was thinking, maybe I should go with Dong Boy, Wang Man, Fart Pea, or perchance even Poo Lord. So you name your rival. Professor Elm tells you that you've made quite the pal out of your new little starter friend. And he just gives you a quick glance and he says, you might be qualified to go take on a bunch of gyms who have adults and sometimes children as their leaders who have been training their entire lives to hold down these gyms. Yeah, You seem qualified for that. So from this moment on, you are given the obvious and repeatable experience that anybody would expect out of a Pokemon game. You defeat gym leaders. You capture and you train your Pokemon. You bump into some mythical Pokemon lore that the entire region revolves around. You destroy an entire criminal organization as an 11-year-old. And inevitably, you battle the Elite Four and the champion. And hey, once you beat the Elite Four, that's the end of the game. But, you know, in this game, there's this whole post-game where you go out and you fight that one kid or whatever, but that's something we'll talk about later. Let's nail down the experience about this game that makes it unique compared to other Pokemon games. Bang. First off, Team Rocket's back. They found their way over to the Johto region, trying to rebuild their reputation after they absolutely got their cheeks clapped by an 11-year-old literally right next door. Hey, surprise, surprise, it happens again. You think that after getting defeated by a child one time, that they would have put some sort of defensive measures in place to maybe try to avoid that situation from ever happening again? Hey, Team Rocket, bust your notepad out. Start taking some notes. I got some ideas for you. Maybe check IDs at the door, like a liquor store, to see if maybe there's someone who's under the age of 13 trying to snoop their way into your building. Here's another idea. Lay out a cardboard box with a stick under it and a string that pulls the stick out. Guess what's under the cardboard box? A nudie magazine. That is like the ultimate way to capture a 12-year-old boy. These fools, they do not know when to just wrap it up. And outside of Team Rocket making a comeback, the story heavily revolves and focuses on the mythical and legendary Pokemon of the region. This is something that's completely new contextually when you compare it to the first generation of games. And the legendary Pokemon like Mewtwo or the legendary birds were just fleeting ideas that the characters would just inevitably bump into after exploring. The entire idea of Johto is based around these two legendary Pokemon that have mythical, almighty, godlike powers, and they reside and look over everybody who lives there. There's even like a small religious cult that solely exists for the purpose of summoning this legendary Pokemon back to the region and having like a master kind of like harness it or whatever. This cult, it's the Kimono Girls. Dude, you go up to them and you smoke, you smoke every single one of them in the dance kimono theater or whatever after you're done with the 8 gyms. And after you smoke them, they're just like,
yo, come with us.
and they just like start twerking and busting it down in a mystical lands like somebody spiked a punch at prom. And after they start hitting their dance, then they summon one of the most powerful Pokemon back to the region. And one of the points of this remake is that we also find out that your rival, Hoophat, is that Giovanni? Nice. This story was engaging, and one of the biggest reveals happens later on the game, but again, it's something that we're going to talk about later. All right, so bringing back a lot of the original elements from the first generation games and kind of adding onto them, sort of like a sequel, bringing back the original criminal syndicate, and then also having a region that's built around these like mythical Pokemon and having this feeling of like tradition. Yeah, that's what makes this story dope. Our style of Pokemon, it stayed relatively the same throughout the majority of its life cycle. From the original Game Boy that looks like when you type in 80085 and flip it upside down on a calculator, all the way up to the Switch that had like those soft Japanese anime style graphics. But each generation slightly either improves or alters the art style to really help cement in the legacy that that specific game and generation represents. The question is, what real advancements were made to show off this new processing power of the Nintendo DS? Well, for starters, Nintendo decided that they wanted to give you a portable Buffalo Wild Wings in your pocket before screen maxing toddlers was any sort of commonplace. And alongside having 2 screens, Nintendo, they were on the forefront of having a technology that was about to explode on the market. Touchscreens. And look. I know that touchscreen sounds just as common as like breathing air nowadays, with everyone, hey, me included, basically having their smartphones taped to their hands, pumping foreign government propaganda directly into their cerebral cortex like it's a boring and long and drawn out saw torture method. But when the DS first hit the gaming market, the experience of a portable, dual screen, touchscreen console that had enough power to run Super Mario 64. Well, that experience was similar to literally just standing on the sidelines and watching Ben Franklin run out of his house butt naked after experimenting with and researching the earliest profession that was known to man, butt naked, holding a string with a kite and a key. That was a long one. Thanks for sticking with me on that one. These Pokemon games, they introduced players to what I'm going to coin as 2.5D. They took the perspective of the game that was basically like overhead. And then they found a way to like shift the camera back like 30 degrees. And then they added in a bunch of other like three-dimensional buildings and landmarks and architecture and nature. And while like the characters in Pokemon, they were still 2D pixels on a flat plane, they sprinkled in a lot of those 3D assets to really strap in your noggin to the interwebs. Feel like you were getting sucked into another dimension, like you were Carmen and whatever her brother's name was in Spy Kids 3D. And how beautifully did they recreate one of the most iconic, legendary regions in all of Pokemon, Johto. The Johto region, it was created to be an expansion of the original Kanto region, mainly being based on the western regions of Japan. A lot of the buildings and overall environment are really inspired by like Japanese architecture and culture. The new graphical capabilities with having 2D and a half, 2.5D. That's what really makes the art in the world so dope. All right, let's get the mandatory breakdown of Pokemon's core elements. Let's just get them out the way. Capture Pokemon, train and battle Pokemon, fight the gym leaders and other trainers, and then eventually go up against the Elite Four and the champion. The end. This isn't news to literally anybody who's played any Pokemon game before. They are the same every single time, no matter which generation you decide to play. Except Arceus, which is like one of my favorite games. And that's great. I don't want to be surprised. I like these games because I know the experience that they're going to offer. I would be incredibly mad if I went to McDonald's and they started using poop instead of hamburger for their Big Macs. So the question is, what are the defining features that make this specific Pokemon gameplay so exciting and enticing to play? Heart Gold and Soul Silver, they introduced a specific aspect to these games that really helped fuel the immersion of a trainer's journey. Having your first party Pokemon follow you around. Well, at a glance, at a bird's eye view, you would think that this would be like an obvious gameplay feature that Game Freak would add into every single game. It's only been seen throughout the franchise a few times, especially in like specific regions. Objectively, the thing that makes this part of the gameplay so incredibly dope is the insane amount of hard work that went in to make any player feel like they were really immersed in the Pokemon experience. Every single Pokemon that is able to be captured in this game are also able to follow you around. Every single one. The designers over at Game Freak, they spent time designing Outer World sprites for all 256 Pokemon that are in this game. Multiply that by 2 because you could also see the shinies that you caught as well in the Outer World. The exciting part about this was the fact that this was a feature that last time was seen in the Pokemon universe was in Pokemon Yellow. Well, I mean, if you include Amity Park from Generation 4, but that was just more like a tease. Back in the day, when Pokemon was exploding, Game Freak knew that they needed to pump out an experience that was extremely similar to the anime, that was gaining so much traction around the world. It's funny because I guarantee, I was like -1 when the game came out, I guess. I don't know what game, when did it come out? Correct me on the screen, me? All right. The funny part is that I know people probably when Yellow came out, they were super excited by this feature. They had it snatched away for the average player. They probably said, oh, due to technical limitations, well, we can't just... Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps! So having the ability to have the first Pokemon in your party follow alongside you was truly a great addition that added to the entire, Pokemon as a different universe approach. One big factor that was introduced into these two games was the use of the Pokewalker. The Pokewalker, it was an accessory that got sold along every copy of every game that would allow you to kind of just take your Pokemon on the go. Basically, it was an overglorified pedometer that allowed you to take your Pokemon out with you and play little silly games and collect silly little items for your in-game experience. Well, if you remember in the late 2000s, Michelle Obama, she ran this CIA psyop that basically convinced the entire American populace that any kid under the age of 12 years old was a fat little stinky greased up porky pig. So not to like, I don't know, throw on a tinfoil hat or anything, but I think Michelle Obama laundered money through the Pokemon company to get our fat little cheeks off the couch instead of watching SpongeBob to go outside and play soccer. And yes, while it was a fun little gimmick, the game can be played and beat without it, and I'm living proof of that. The post game of SoulSilver is exactly where this game ramps it up into 10,000 banana mode. First off, they packed an entire region inside of one game. You get to go back and explore Kanto all over again, pretending like you're Red from the original games. Oh, gym leaders, towns, routes, legendary Pokemon, they are all there. Except for the Safari Zone, it got moved. Please don't kill me in the comments. Please don't kill me, please. And speaking of legendary Pokemon, this post game has a plethora of them. Dude, you can get the likes of Rayquaza, Groudon, Kyogre, you can get the legendary dogs, you can get the bird, you can get Mewtwo, you can get so many of them. It is absolutely stacked. And on the subject of legendaries, this is like the one Pokemon game, and please correct me because I did not research this as I'm reading it out of my head right now. This was like the one Pokemon game where you could capture both of the mascots in one game without trading. Games like Ruby and Sapphire, they made you trade to get Groudon and Kyogre. Dude, I blanked. Well, Game Freak in this game, they take the legendaries for both of you and they offer them up to you like they're hippies at a Grateful Dead concert offering you brownies that they just cooked in their truck using an easy bake oven. But the thing about this game, there is one factor here that completely shifted my mindset on the Pokemon experience. Dude, SoulSilver is so hard. When you hit the top of Mount Silver, there's just a looming figure staring off into the distance, probably wondering if his Pokeballs are going to shrivel up from frostbite. You engage with that mysterious person for battle, and his identity is revealed to you. It's Red, the main protagonist from the first games. It's you! My first time ever getting this far into Generation 2 was like a few years back, and it was the first game that I ever played on one of my Pocket emulator handheld devices, the Retroid Pocket 3. And the thing was I genuinely had no idea that Red was going to be at the very end. And I'm glad that I got to experience that for the first time as like a fully developed adult who could understand the gravity and the significance of the situation. And let me tell you what. The gravity is strong. You are fresh off a high of just dropping some stinky dukers on the Elite Four. The champion in all 16 gyms that span across the Kanto and Johto regions. Your team level, it's averaged around like 50-ish, each 50. And you're feeling like Lance Armstrong after shooting steroids directly into your pooper before a big race. Oh, my friend. You just brought a stick to a
Nuke fight.
The most humbling moment that I ever had playing Pokemon was when Red threw out his level 88 Pikachu. My entire team got smoked by his Pikachu with every Thunderbolt or Iron Tail whipping through and knocking him out. I blacked out and I woke up in a Pokemon Center. Absolutely dumbfounded by the Boston Massacre that I just witnessed. The feeling of incredible despair, confusion, and slight erotic arousal is truly the defining factor of what makes these games dope. This is the moment that defines boys from men, girls from women, and losers from champions. If you are a true dope baller, there should be one question that pops into your head as you stand in the Pokemon Center watching your demolished team get healed. What strategy do I need to adopt to make destroying this child look so violent that Order 66 in comparison looks like a Chihuahua's birthday party? All right, look, this entire section of the video basically going to be a ginormous Cornborn Pro Gamer tip. There's a tried and true method to level up your Pokemon through almost every Pokemon game. This is rebattling trainers that you have already defeated out on the road. In Fire Red, you were given this device that was basically like a fight picker. Like telling a Taylor Swift fan that they are completely psychotic for being at like a crying level of excitement for a wedding that they're not even remotely close to being involved with, and that they definitely need to seek psychiatric help. That's exactly what the Versus Seeker was in Fire Red. The Versus Seeker, it was incredibly dope because especially there's this one spot in Fire Red where you can pop off the bike trail and there's like those 3 bird dorks that are all standing around in a row, and you go, and you hit off the Versus Seeker, and at least 2 out of 3 of them are going to want to fight you again, so you just rebattle them over and over and over and over again to XP grind. But in Generation 2 and 3, the developers here, they thought that they would just get cute and try to incorporate some technology that just started taking shape at the time. The telephone. I'll go on record here and say that the Pokegear and the Pokenav were the worst additions that were ever added into the Pokemon universe. If you're looking to rematch up against some snubby dipweed bug trainer, you have to physically call him on the phone to check in. And outside of making the actual phone call, you have to call them at a specific time and day during the week. It's cute to think that Game Freak thought for even a millisecond that any of their fan base or any of these gamers have any sort of resemblance of patience whatsoever. If you think that I'm playing Pokemon on a Saturday afternoon and I'm desperately trying to level up my water type for this red battle, and I'm gonna wait until Tuesday afternoon to give Blaine a ring,
You are just as psychotic as Taylor Swift fans.
so what is the way to get around this incredibly stupid and counterproductive game mechanic? Well, the game runs off an internal clock that is set inside of your device. There's no AI overlord that's sitting inside of your DS to make sure that you're following the strict guidelines of rebattling. Get elbow deep in your device settings and adjust that time clock, baby. Dude, I was rebattling gyms that would have been like super effective across one of my team members. So great example was like using my water type Gyarados and rebattling up against Blaine. And after every battle, I would just go into my phone and adjust the day from this Tuesday to last Tuesday, over and over and over again. I felt like Doctor Strange when he was hitting like that wrist magical like time spell. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. But eventually their teams become too weak to even scratch the surface of giving you enough XP points to even make it a dent in growing your Pokemon's level. So after getting extremely bored of cosplaying Hermione Granger with the Time Turner to battle trainers, I looked for literally any other option that would make the level grinding experience easier. So I was doing research on the game and I learned about this item that's held by a Chansey that's called the Lucky Egg. While the Lucky Egg sounds like something that a half leprechaun, half Easter bunny would bring you on a non-denominational holiday as a gift, a Lucky Egg is an item that can be held by a Pokemon that increases the amount of XP that they get in a battle by 50%. I thought this was going to be my holy grail, my golden ticket, my unlimited shrimp at Red Lobster. Dude, the chance of finding a Chansey is 10%. The chance of finding a Chansey with a Lucky Egg is 5%. Of that 10%. Look, I'm no nuclear scientist, but brother, you have a better chance of finding out where the Pentagon's spending has gone for, I don't know, the last 7 audits than finding a Chansey with a Lucky Egg. This damn inflation squeezing the prices of eggs over a game that's 15 years old. Anyway, I abandoned this mission and I moved on to the last phase of my strategy to get my Pokemon in peak massacring condition, rematching the Elite Four. Look, I had already smoked these fools one time, so my objective here was to do the old front party flipperoo where you throw one Pokemon out and then you bring it back in and then you go crush him with another one to basically XP farm. And I didn't care if I was going to win or lose. I just wanted to see that blue bar go up. The Elite Four has 3 different people in a row that can be easily smoked by a psychic type that has the ability to learn Shadow Ball. Who in the Kanto or Johto region is a strong psychic type that has the ability to learn Shadow Ball? Look, I fully support the slogan, thick thighs save lives, because my goat Mewtwo, he got that thing on him. He out there shaking his lab-grown cheeks for the Elite Four. Master Balled him up. I'm going to catch some hate for that. I don't care. And then I just went out there and I started getting smoked by the Elite Four over and over and over again. Using that old switcheroo method, I got my team up to about level 70-ish a pop for each member. So this was the moment of truth. The moment that I had been grinding for. So I made my way up to the top of Mount Silver with a tingle in my spine and a whole lot of
Jack's pizza lodged inside of my small intestine.
I fired up the battle with Red. First Pokemon I threw out, Steelix, making his Pikachu more worthless than a bar of soap sitting in a Funko Pop's collector's bathroom. And then after some time of fighting my way through, I get to his last Pokemon, which is the Venusaur. At least for me. I'm not sure if it's like that for everybody, but who knows. I had been doing that thing where I was back and forth reviving in between my Typhlosion and my Mewtwo. But after some time, the revives would only get you up to about so far in your health bar. And then one moment I felt ballsy and I said, this is it. I'm just going to send it. My Mewtwo has half of its life left. Everybody else in my party's dead. I could use the revive to bring somebody back and keep it going, or I'm just going to send it. So I sent Psychic out on his Venusaur, and I turned that Venusaur into a pile of leaves that your dad would have woke you up early on a Saturday morning to go outside and raid. This is it. The game is officially over. Look, the fact that you even have to go through all of this mental gymnastics and grinding to even get to this point of the game is objectively what makes this game so swagged up. No other Pokemon game really pushes you like this, with no easy way outs. Just balling with all the resources that you have at your disposal. The amount of relief and joy that I was filled with after I beat Red could only be compared to a moment when you're driving home and you feel that Brown knocking on Stinky's door. You see your house from the car and your brain connects to the toilet via Bluetooth. You run to your house trying to get inside and you're shaking as you're trying to open the door and you drop your keys in front of the door. Then you finally make it in and you let it all fly. That is exactly what beating Red feels like. And that is exactly why this game is so dope. With the combination of a fresh retelling of the original story, incredible graphics and fun art styles being added in to entice new players and satisfy old players, and the hardest challenge ever at the end of this Pokemon region, these factors are what make Pokemon SoulSilver so incredibly dope. All right, you gotta play this game. Pokemon SoulSilver is the definitive way to experience the Johto region in its finest, the most engaging way possible, by blending in elements of Crystal, adding in legendaries that were once not available, and adding in supplemental information that helped round out the entire Pokemon lore. There is a few different ways that you can play this game. First and obvious one is go out and go buy yourself an original DS and an original copy of Pokemon SoulSilver. These games are incredibly sought after for a good reason, and so don't be surprised if there is an incredibly steep price tag on both of those things. And look, if you have a brain and you don't feel like spending more than $250 on a Pokemon game, hear me out. There are other ways to play it. Go to Spirit Halloween, buy yourself a pirate costume, and have the time of your life sailing the 7 seas and rerunning this game again. What was your strategy to beating literally, probably in my opinion, the hardest boss in any video game I think I've ever played? If you had a similar name structure to Mr. Pokemon, what would it be? Let me know in the comments. And as always, this channel was made to promote my band. Go check out our debut album, Destined to Conquer. All right, this is it. It's been fun. This is Cornborn. What up, gang? Cornborn here. Before we get to America's, or the Cornborn's dopest home videos submission here, I just want to say one thing, which is if you're going to come at me for not going to the Battle Frontier or the Battle Tower or whatever it's called in this game, hey, I never go to those, and I never will. I just don't play them, so sorry I didn't touch on that. And if you do, I hope that's great. Anyway, here's our submission for dopest home videos. It's from my good friend Owen. Absolutely rocking and rolling on his Togepi guitar. Check him out. Check out his band. Peace. Hey, so I already reached out to Owen about this, but I tried to upload this, and basically he's playing the Pokemon theme song. Super dope style, like crazy banana mega style. Absolutely doped and swagged up. Ridiculous that I got copyright striked. So I'm not giving the Nintendo company and the Pokemon company any more money. So if you want to listen to this, please go to his Instagram page, because that is insane. I am not splitting revenue with them, especially when they release games that suck so bad and they release them and you can't even play them. It looks like it's a mumbled pile of garbage when you try to roll around on the Pokemon or whatever. It's so stupid. I hate it so much. So please go to Owen's page, watch this video for real, because it is beast and he rules. So that's it. I don't know what else to do here. Yeah, all right, bye. I'm signing out.